Hey everyone, Mr. Macintosh here, and now that Apple has released the macOS Sequoia 15.3 update, we need to test it against our unsupported Macs running OpenCore Legacy Patcher, running the latest release of 2.2.0. In this video, we're going to do a full walkthrough on how to update your Mac to the latest macOS Sequoia 15.3 so you can see step by step how to do it. Then we're going to test it against 11 different models to make sure that your installation runs as smooth as possible so we don't find any issues before you make the jump. We got a lot to cover. Let's jump in and get started. Before we get into the video, I want to be clear that when a new update comes out for the operating system macOS, you do not need to update immediately. You can, but you don't have to. And don't feel like pressure that every time something new comes out that you have to update to it. Feel free to give it some time. Give it a week, give it 2 weeks. Take a look on Reddit or the OpenCore Legacy Patcher Discord, see if anybody's posting any problems. You can make that jump after you see and feel like it's enough time where you can make that jump. Or you can follow along with some of the testing that I'm doing here, and that's why I'm doing it. I would rather catch the issue here before you make that jump and have issues on your side. There's 83 different models, but we try our best to try to capture a lot of different scenarios and setup. With that said, let's take a look first at what's included in the 15.3 update, and then if anything in there affects you and your particular setup. If we take a look at the macOS Sequoia 15.3 update release notes, we see that there's a couple things here. And remember, you've heard me talk in the past about how Apple does not necessarily list all the fixes that are in the update. So that's a tough call too. They might have fixed something small, but they don't think that that's a big enough deal to put it in here, even though I think every single fix should be listed in here. But if you look at this, it's based around some Apple Intelligence, for example, Gemoji, and some of the notification summaries around Apple Intelligence. And the first thing that we know is that Apple Intelligence is not compatible with Intel Macs, supported Intel Macs, and it's not compatible with unsupported Macs. Even though in the past some of those features like AirPlay and stuff like that are compatible, Apple Intelligence is not supported with the OpenCore Legacy Patcher unsupported Macs. When you break it down, you've got one fix in this list, and it's a calculator change with a mathematical operation when you hit the equal sign twice. Let's be real here, right? It's like, am I going to update my system for a calculator fix? But we need to think a little bit deeper in here, and this gets into the security side of things. Because it's one thing to have all these release fixes and bugs and stuff like that, bug fixes and new features, but it's another to try to keep your Mac secure. And when we talk about that, it's an interesting subject because there's two sides of it. Some people are saying, well, you should not have an unsupported Mac. You should keep with Apple's latest version. But you could also say that that's insecure too. So let's talk about the security updates in the 15.3 update next. We know to install OpenCore Legacy Patcher on our unsupported Macs, we have to be able to give up some pieces of security. For example, some pieces of the system integrity protection are disabled. The developers did their best to enable every single thing that would allow the patcher to run, but some things have to be disabled. And what we have to do is we have to weigh that against the security fixes that are included in 15.3. If you're still running macOS High Sierra, you are so far out of date with security updates, even though the system is Apple built and protected. All these security fixes included in 15.3, including Safari fixes for 18.3, are included. So yes, some things like we talked about non-enabled, but there's a lot of fixes that are included in Sequoia that keeps you protected. So again, when we want to weigh that, I would weigh more for having the latest operating system on my system to protect me against all the 67 individual CVE security vulnerabilities than it is to run an unprotected system, even though it's supported by Apple. So again, you got to weigh that, but then you still got to look at what is being added to the system security-wise. So that rounds up the features and some of the security fixes included in the 15.3 update. I also wanted to mention macOS Sonoma and macOS Ventura. They both received a security update 14.7.3 and 13.7.3, and they are still supported by Apple and OpenCore Legacy Patcher. So if you're not on macOS Sequoia yet and you're still on one of the older operating systems, you're doing just fine. And it is fully compatible, and I've been thinking about doing videos of these guys, but there's just not enough interest. Let me know in the comments what operating system you're running. Sequoia? Are you running Sonoma, Ventura? Are you running Monterey? Even Big Sur? Let me know below and how your system is running, because it seems like there's a sweet spot right around here in Ventura and maybe even up to Sonoma. This seems to be the sweet spot from even your comments that you've said for the older Macs 11 to 2012 and 13. Seems to be a really good spot for compatibility and usability and stability. So let me know what you think about that. The next question I get sometimes is this version of OpenCore Legacy Patcher supported by the latest macOS update, for example, 15.3? So if you look at the patch notes, even though it says focuses on 15.2, testing is always being completed by the developers in the beta releases of 15.3, for example. And that's usually how a new update is formulated if there's major problems that are found in the beta releases. So far, no large-scale update problems have popped up for the 15.3 update. And so far in all my testing, 2.2.0 is working very well with 15.3. Even though it doesn't say anything, if there's no problems, the current release will move forward with compatibility with the latest macOS update. Now that could change at any time. If something does come up later, a new update or a hotfix can be released, but for now, 2.2.0 is working well with 15. Before we get to the walkthrough of the update and going over each model, I want to go over some of the issues. While it seems like I go over so many different machines, I want to be clear, I'm going over all those different models because I picked them for a very specific reason. Some of them have the MetallibSupport package, some of them only have the Intel, so they don't need anything. Some of them need a KDK, Kernel Debug Kit. Some of them have particular issues that cause issues. That's why I picked those models. But before we get to that, I wanted to go over some of the issues that are still in the Sequoia system for OpenCore Legacy Patcher and the current status. The MacBook Air 2018 and 2019 are still not compatible with macOS Sequoia, but they're running the T2 security chip, and they are not compatible yet. There's still no ETA on if those will ever be supported, so that's kind of in the middle there. There's also, I wanted to mention, this is separate, a Patreon member reached out and said, hey, have you tested Chrome on 6.1 Mac Pro? And I was like, wonder what that could be issue. So when I did, he said there's something wrong with the rendering and how it's showing in red. So I finally was able to take a look at that, and Chrome is just non-functional on 6.1. So I'll show you that later, but those are some of the little small things that can happen with macOS Sequoia right now, because again, it's the latest version of the operating system and there's still work to do with all the different models. So again, that's going to happen, and that's why we said that if you're still looking for a solid system, keep an eye on macOS Ventura or Sonoma. There's also some users still reporting some issues with Big Sur, and I said last time I was going to take a look at that, but I realized that my Big Sur system was overwritten, so I'm going to have to do an install and see what's going on with macOS Big Sur. If you're having trouble with Big Sur on the latest version of the patcher, let me know in the comments so I can take a closer look. I mentioned this multiple times. If you missed it or didn't see it, make sure that after you do a unsupported Mac install, that you go into software update and you disable automatic updates by clicking the I right here and making sure that this download updates when available is off. That's caused a lot of issues with users, that where it downloads the full update and then it stages and it changes the system and causes issues if it's downloading a newer version of the operating system that then you're currently on when you try to do the patching. And that helps because this allows you to take control of when you're going to update, and then will prevent that system mismatch error that can happen when you have that automatic update come down. And you can see my video here that goes over what to do if that happens to you and how to rescue your system. That's why I'm saying turn it off now, so you don't even ever have to run into that issue. The other thing I wanted to talk about is after you do the system update and it comes back up for the first time, the system will be even slower than it normally is, and you'll have a black screen on some of the older systems, and it's incredibly slow. Sometimes you'll just see the cursor, sometimes you'll just see the circle and the password box here, and it's extremely slow. If you can get into the system and let the patcher go, that's fine, but if it's so slow where it's causing so many issues, it's okay to power the system down or turn it off, then power it back on, and then the system will run a lot better error at that point. It's just that first restart after installing the patches that causes some issues and is extremely slow for some of the older systems. With that out of the way, let me know if you guys are having any issues with your installs. I like to highlight what you put in the comments because a lot of times you're not the only one having that issue, and we can help each other with getting some of those things fixed when we bring them into these videos here. Now that we've got that covered, let's go into the walkthrough and show how to update to 15.3. Up next is our full walkthrough on how to install the 15.3 update on your unsupported Mac. Our demonstration machine here today is our MacBook Pro 15-inch 2017 with a touch bar and Touch ID and the T1 security chip. When we are talking about the update, we want to make sure that we're on the latest version of OpenCore Legacy Patcher. And remember, when I always talk about updating the patcher, we have our A, B, and C, or 1, 2, 3 steps. The step 1 is to make sure the version of the application is the latest version, 2.2.0 as of this taping. The next thing is to make sure that our EFI bootloader is on the latest version. And if you don't know where to check that, all you need to do is go into settings, and then you can go to the app, and then scroll down, and you'll see the release of 101/2024. Now, how do you know if that's the latest release? Well, then you can look at the booted patch version of 2.2.0. So once you know your OpenCore bootloader EFI is updated to the latest version, the other way, the third and final, is to make sure that you have the latest post-install root patches installed. And you can see that it has all applicable patches already installed, and the date and the version of the patches that were installed. So once this is all set, then you're good to go on the next step, which is updating your system to the latest version of macOS Sequoia 15.3. Now, before you make that jump, I always recommend backing up your system because you never know what could happen. Even supported systems have problems sometimes with updates, even though it's very rare to have something like that happen. It's always good to have a good backup. So once you're in here in software update and under general, or clicking on the software update here, you can click on more info and you can see that the update size is 15.22 gigabytes. That is normal. And the old way of unpatching and trying to do the smaller update does not work anymore, and it's not supported with macOS Sequoia anymore. Now that we know all that, we can click on Update Now and agree, and it's going to start to download macOS Sequoia 15.3. On the systems that need the Kernel Debug Kit, you are going to see this message here that says that we need to download the Kernel Debug Kit for your update. So you click on OK, and it'll start to download the latest build 24D60. And that's the same version of macOS 15.3. And you can see if that's the case by going to the KDK page, by going to the GitHub for OpenCore Legacy Patcher Dortania on the latest KDK support package. You can see right here the latest release, KDK for 15.3. Why would you ever even need this? Well, if you're ever having a problem like it's not able to download the KDK or something happens, you can download this, and this is exactly what the patcher is downloading. Normally you don't have to do anything with this, but the way that you can see if it's downloading the KDK or not is to go into your Macintosh hard drive, go into Library, Developer, and you'll see the KDKs folder. If you started this update here and you did not get this screen, and you know your machine needs a KDK, you should see the latest KDK in here. We're going to see this live when this is done downloading. Sometimes, in a rare case, this system does not work properly, and it's not able to cache the Kernel Debug Kit to the system. And if that happens, that's okay, because previous versions are still usually compatible. So if it downloads 15.3 and installs it and it doesn't have the KDK for 15.3, it can still use the 15.2 that it has cached here. But that might not be the case if there's one small thing that's not compatible that the new KDK 15.3 needs. So that's why every update we download the latest version of KDK, and you'll see it be cached here, and you'll know that this thing's ready to go. So what I like to do is before the system reboots, I check my folder and I see if the KDK's here. And if it is, because maybe I walked away and I missed this, and if I see it here, I'm good to go. If it's not here, I know that I'm going to have to deal with that when the system comes back up. And again, we're getting in the weeds here, but I want you to have the knowledge is power. When you know about this and something happens, you'll know what to do in the future if something goes wrong, and you'll be able to prepare for that. Now it's preparing that software update. So what it's doing is it's going to move that in there, and there it is. It moved the KDK to the folder. It doesn't install it yet. It just puts the package here. You know when the KDK is installed when it creates a folder with all of the files and the extensions in here. But it doesn't do that until the update is installed and the patcher begins to install. We'll go over that later. So we're set. Now, while this is sitting here preparing, I also wanted to talk about the MetallLib package that's required. Starting with macOS Sequoia, certain models required what's called as the MetallibSupport package to be able to get these particular models working with OpenCore Legacy Patcher. When we kick off the update, this is the new message that you're going to see on these machines. Now, I'll put that list down in the description of this video. This is what you're going to see, just like the Kernel Debug Kit, to be able to get the MetallibSupport package. That also has a GitHub site available where you can check the releases. Again, these links are down in the description too. You can check the MetallibSupport package in the latest release against what you have on your system. So where do you find those? Well, for the MetallibSupport package, you go into Macintosh hard drive, library, application support, Dortania, and the MetallibSupport package folder. And then you'll see the list of the same thing with the Kernel Debug Kit, all the folders. You're not going to see a package in this situation. You're going to see a folder with the files in there included. So that's how that works. And if you're not seeing that in here, you know you're going to have to deal with that after. And these are just things that you do not usually have to keep an eye on. Normally the system works just fine and everything works out great. But if you do have issues behind after the install happens, these are some of the things that you can look at to help you troubleshoot. Okay, so we're going to let this system prepare the 15.3 update, install the update, and we'll return when the update is finished and we're at the login window to continue and make sure that the patching system works properly. Okay, our 15-inch 2017 MacBook Pro has finished installing the 15.3 update. This is what we should see. OpenCore Legacy Patcher run in the background, detect that we're running without the root patches, and ask us if we would like to install the latest version of the root patches. And yes, we do. But remember, if for some reason this does not come up, that's okay. Just go into the applications folder, open up the OpenCore Legacy Patcher app, and then run the post-root patches right here. That will do it manually. But again, the automatic system should kick in and run this and display this, and all you need to do is click on OK. Then it'll start to do this. Now, while it's saying it's fetching a KDK database, that is doing that if it can reach the internet. If it can't, it stops there, and then it's actually going to be installing the Kernel Debug Kit in the background, and this is where we're going to be able to watch this live. We've got our Kernel Debug Kit folder open. We see the package here, and when it's done installing, we'll see the folder, and that's when it'll continue to install the root patches, and we'll watch this live here. Sometimes it takes a little bit depending on the speed of the system. Since we're running a 2017 device, it shouldn't take too much longer, but on older devices this part will take longer, and you might be wondering why it's sitting here on downloading so long. It's not. It's installing that KDK, and we'll see that here in just a second. And there it is. The KDK is done. It's got the folder there, and it immediately started to install the root patches. You can see that the KDK is already installed for 15.3, and it's going to continue on merging the KDK with the root volume and installing the rest of the patches. And we will let this go here, and when it's finished, we will be able to reboot the system, and we'll be good to go. Okay, the patches are now applied. All we need to do is click on reboot, and then restart. Okay, we're back up after the patch install. Let's open up the OpenCore Legacy Patcher app and verify that we are good to go. You can click on post install root patches and show all applicable patches already installed. 2.2.0 today, January 29th. And there we go. That's our full walkthrough on our 2017-inch, 15-inch MacBook Pro. Let me know if you have any comments about this process in the comments below. Now let's take a look at the list of machines that we're going to go over and make sure that the installation worked a-okay. And a few of you asked what I use to be able to remotely connect to these machines. I use the screen sharing application, and you can click on all connections to see what their previous connections, and then click on network to show you all the machines that are on my local network that I'm able to connect to. And this is how I can just click here and just connect directly to the machine and have full control over it. It works very well. You should try it if you want to be able to connect to your machines remotely without being able to have to be at the machine itself. Okay, the second machine that we're taking a look at today is our MacBook Retina 12-inch early 2016. This particular one is very interesting because it does not need the MetallibSupport package or the Kernel Debug Kit. All it has is the graphics Intel Skylake, and it needs modern wireless and PCIe FaceTime camera patches. We're running 15.3, and we've got our applications like Maps and Apple TV are working a-okay so far. And if we look at our statistics here, we were running a 1.1 dual-core Intel M3 with 8 gigabytes of RAM, and 2.2.0 is running very well. Our Wi-Fi, our Bluetooth, our sleep wake is working properly, and that's our 12-inch MacBook. Next up is our MacBook Pro Retina 15-inch mid-2014. This is our Kepler machine that we have had problems in the past, and there's still some things going on with this particular machine that we got to go over. This is running 15.3, and we've got 2.2.0 running just fine on there. This particular machine has Intel Haswell and NVIDIA coupler, like I just said, modern wireless PCIe FaceTime camera. We do have extensions that are installed on this device, and we also have the MetallibSupport package 15.3 that is required for this device. And again, we can see that in the library application support Titania folder for 15.3. Now, the issues around this machine, and this is again where the comments have come through. I mentioned how I was having problems with software update. It would show up and I would click the button, nothing would happen. I would click more info, click the install, nothing would happen. Or I would click install and a little bitty sliver would go. Something's wrong. And maybe it's just the Kepler devices, but if you do get that, get it to where you can click more info and then click the update button and let it sit. It's actually going in the background. And another way you can do it is doing the software update binary. And then you can do an L for list. And then once the list comes up here, you can run the software update from the command line, and it will be able to install that way. And I've been able to do that when I've been having problems. So that syntax would be sudo software update -I install all A, and then a capital R for restart. Run that, it will install the update and restart the system. And that's a way to get around the software update issues on this Kepler device. Up next is our MacBook Air 11-inch early 2014. Now, we did have some issues here, and I want to go over those so you're aware of this. And we are running a 1.4 i5 with 4 gigs of RAM, 15.3, and we have the extension for Apple Intel HD 5000 required. We've got our Intel Haswell modern wireless and PCIe FaceTime camera. We also need the 15.3 MetallibSupport package, and that's where our problem started. The system's running okay, but exactly like I mentioned earlier in the video happened to this device. What happened was I started the update, and the MetallibSupport package did not come up to download. What we need to do is we need to open up the patcher and then verify. So we go into that library application support Titania folder, MetallibSupport package, and as we can see in here, there's no 15.2 in here. So again, it's running okay against 15.3, but in reality, you want to usually run with the latest version in a matching state. The system might be running perfectly, but maybe there's one small issue that's happening because it's not on the latest version. It's just tough to say, and it's better just to be on the latest version. So if that happens, you're still okay and you can still fix yourself. We can download that MetallibSupport package from that GitHub site, or we can do it really easily by just running the patcher again while we're connected to the network. And that's what usually happens sometimes after, when it's patching after. It's in a state where it does not have the Wi-Fi drivers, and if you're not connected to Ethernet. It can't download the latest version of MetaLib or the latest version of KDK if it was unable to cache them before. But now, since we have internet, we can run the post-root patch again, and it will call out to see if everything is in order. And even though it says all applicable patches are installed, that's correct, but it's not able to check for the Kernel Debug Kit or the latest version of MetallibSupport package here. So this is where we can get that by starting the root patching again. See, now it's able to fetch the list of compatible MetallibSupport, grab it, download it, and you'll see it go right here. Now it's installing it. Give it a second. And as soon as it's done uninstalling that package, there we go, there's our folder. When we're doing the root patches, it can use the latest version 15.3 to be able to build that. And what you can see there it is, pulling that MetallIb list, and the direct match is found. 24D60, 15.3, and now it's able to build with those files instead of with 15.2 because that's all it had before. Now we'll let this go through and it'll reboot, and this system will be fully up to date. Up next is our MacBro late 2013 trash can. This system is running very well, and I also wanted to demo that Chrome issue that we talked about earlier in the video that was having a bunch of issues. We are running OpenCore Legacy Patcher 2.2.0 on 15.3. We need our AMD Legacy GCN patches and our modern wireless. We do need the KDK 15.3, and you can see it downloaded just fine before we rebooted. Everything was good with the patches, Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, everything's working great. Now let's talk about that Chrome issue, and I wanted to do it at the end just in case the system crashed. And this thing, I don't know what's the deal is with it, but it is not good. So if we open up Chrome, we'll see how it reacts here. Hopefully it doesn't freeze the system. Oh boy, it's not even responding. Yep, look at that. So, and then there, oh, so it did at least load, but there's the red that I was telling you about this. So there's something seriously wrong with Chrome or Chromium browser on Mac. I don't know which versions this covers. I don't know if it's just the AMD. If you've seen this before in any other app with the red, let me know so we can try to find out what this is affecting, and is it a certain set of applications? What's going on here? So let me know if you see this, because again, yeah, look at this. It's not even. Oof, look at this. I can't. Not good. Let's see if we can even do a force quit here. What a mess. That's why we do the testing, and that's why the comments are critical. Even though I don't use Chrome, I know a lot of other people do, and I don't know about this thing because I can't test every app. But if you do and you see something like this, say something so we are all aware of the issue. And that's our 2013 Mac Pro. Up next is our 13-inch mid-2012 MacBook Pro, and this is a really unique machine because they sold this until 2016 as a budget MacBook Pro that could still have a SuperDrive DVD burner and CD in it. So it was targeted for budget and education markets, and it's still a great little machine. We're running 15.3 and 2.2.0. We needed the MetallibSupport package, and look at, I put this note in there from the last time, so this machine was having problems with that too. So let's take a look at that. Remember where that was? We can go into Finder, we'll go Macintosh hard drive, and then we go Library, Application Support, Dortania, MetallibSupport package folder. This is the second machine where that happened, so I don't know if this is starting to become a trend. Let me know if you've got a MetallibSupport package machine and you're seeing this. This is now the second time this has happened. We'll do that same thing. We'll go back in here, host root install patch, and it's going to be able to grab that 15.3. And there it goes. So that'll fix that. We'll install those patches. It'll be fully updated. We'll reboot. The Apple TV is working on here. We've got Apple Maps is working. And we're almost to the point where we're at non-metal. So 2012 is that cutoff where it's the metal GPU, and 2011 and under are going to be some of the machines that start having graphical problems like maps not loading and stuff like that. We will let this patch here with the latest version of MetallibSupport package, but everything else looks a-okay on this MacBook Pro 13-inch 2012. Next up is a new entry in our test system here, and is a Mac Mini server late 2012 quad-core i7. This is a great little machine. We are running 15.3, and we're running the latest 2.2.0 on this system. For patches, we've got Intel Ivy Bridge and modern wireless. What we did see on this particular one, and again I forgot about that before we talked about the last one, we do have the MetallibSupport package that was able to download. Everything else is working fine on this Mac Mini new entry server late 2012. Up next is the king of laptops, the MacBook Pro 17-inch late 2011. Running 15.3, 2.2.0. We are running Intel, Sandy Bridge, AMD Terascale 2, modern wireless, and legacy keyboard backlight. We have a KDK that's required for 15.3 that did install A-OK. Since we're non-metal, this is where some of the application problems start to pop up. We talked about Maps not working. Maps is no good, but Apple TV and stuff like that does load properly. So again, it all has to do with, relies heavily on metal or not, whether you're going to have application incompatibility issues. We're getting older here. We've got our polycarbonate mid-2010 13-inch MacBook. This is where some of the performance starts to slowly not perform as what we are usually expecting. This machine still does well for what it is. It is now basically 15 years old and can still run the latest operating system. I mean, impressive, just the fact that it can do it. But we have to be real here with the performance expectations. This particular machine's running a Core 2 Duo processor, so it's not able to hang with the i5s and the i7s. We're on 4 gigs of RAM, 15.3, 2.2.0. We do have the AMD Polaris Modern Wireless and the Legacy USB 1.1. So this system needs that USB 2.0 hub or USB 2.0 keyboard to be able to navigate the installer and be able to install the root patches after. We do need the Kernel Debug Kit 15.3, and that did install successfully with no issue, so that's good. But again, apps like Maps and stuff like that, and we know already with non-metal, does not work. But otherwise, this machine's still chugging along. MacBook 13-inch 2010. Well, the 17-inch MacBook Pro is the king of MacBook Pro laptops. The king of desktops is the Mac Pro mid-2010 5.1. This machine, while I mentioned previously with the last 2010 MacBook starting to slow down, if you upgrade the Mac Pro, it can still be a very solid system with your metal compatible graphics card and even upgraded Bluetooth and wireless. And that's what this machine has. We have an AMD Radeon Pro WX metal compatible card, and we've got an upgraded Wi-Fi and Bluetooth card to be able to get modern wireless patches instead of the legacy patches. So this machine's running very well, and you can see that Maps does run with our metal compatible card. It's running very well with no issues in this patch. We did need the KDK 15.3, and it got that and installed just fine. This is the Mac Pro 2010. Last but not least is our MacBook Pro 15-inch late 2008 model. Now, when I mention performance, this guy is definitely struggling for sure. This is not really a usable system at this point. You can get around, but it's definitely starting to struggle. Again, being 17 years old, impressive, but you definitely notice the lag. I mean, when you start to open up Safari, it'll kind of clunk and clock for a while. Again, the fact that it does open, you can use it, but you'll definitely start to see some slowness when you get back this far. The Core 2 Duo just can't hang, and it just runs slow. But that's why I wanted to test this anyway, because I want to show that while we can install the latest version of the operating system on there, it might not be the greatest idea in certain situations. We're running our graphics in NVIDIA Tesla, Legacy Wireless, Legacy Keyboard Backlight, and Legacy USB 1.1. We also need the Kernel Debug Kit 15.3, which installed A-OK, and that's our late 2008 15-inch MacBook Pro. And then there was one. Let me know in the comments how your install went. Do you have any questions? What machine you're using to install OpenCore Legacy Patcher on? I always like to read through there and see what your setup and your process was. Hope you enjoyed this video, and we'll catch you in the next one. Thanks.